The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990 wasn't just a surprise box office hit, it gave a new direction to indie films. And that's exactly why the movie is going to be in theaters from August 15th to August 21st to celebrate its 35th anniversary. So we thought, why not bring to you some of the most interesting details from the film? Stuff like how all the people inside the turtle suits actually had small cameos without the suit, or how the legendary Robin Williams helped one of the actors with their performance. In fact, the movie also had several people who later won Academy Awards or were nominated for the same. So without further ado, let's remove the manhole cover and explore 25 insane, informative, and fun facts about this iconic turtle adventure. But before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those two small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. And now, let's begin. Very few real New York locations. Even though the Turtles live in New York's sewers, most of the film was actually shot on North Carolina sound stages. To give the movie a genuine Big Apple flavor, the crew did limited on-location filming in New York City at a few famous spots. For example, the scene of Raphael coming out of the movie theater was filmed at 61st and Central Park West in Manhattan, and the Foot Clan's hideout exterior was an old building on Roosevelt Island. These real NYC backdrops mixed with detailed sets helped the film feel authentically New York, even though the bulk of Ninja Turtle action happened far from the city. If you think about it, the upcoming Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day, is also being shot in Glasgow, made to look like New York. Pizza delivery meta moment. One of the film's most clever cameos is literally a turtle delivering pizza to himself. In the famous pizza delivery scene, where we hear the line, "Wise men say, forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza," we actually see actor Michelin Sisti, the suit performer for Michelangelo, playing the Domino's delivery guy who hands a pizza down into the sewer. In other words, the man in the Michelangelo costume shows up without the costume to deliver Michelangelo's pizza. Sisti was essentially acting opposite himself, bringing new meaning to the term personal delivery. No wonder Mikey knew exactly what he ordered. In fact, all the four turtles had their cameos in the movie. Of course, I'm talking about cameos without the costumes. Director removed from final cut. Director Steve Barron guided the Turtles to the screen, but he didn't have the final say on the edit. Partway through post-production, Barron was reportedly sidelined because producers felt his version of the film was too dark in tone. According to actor Josh Pais, who played Raphael, the higher-ups were worried that Barron's gritty vision would alienate the younger audience the movie was aimed for. Barron had drawn more from the Mirage Comics' shadowy style, whereas the producers wanted a slightly lighter touch closer to the popular cartoon. The exact differences between Barron's cut and the theatrical release remain unknown though, since his original edit has never been publicly shown. What's clear is that after principal photography, Golden Harvest, the production company, took the film out of Barron's hands to re-edit and add more kid-friendly elements. Despite this behind-the-scenes clash, Barron's influence is still felt in the movie's stylish blend of humor and darkness. In fact, Golden Harvest's track record is not quite great when it came to removing people. They also removed TMNT editor Sally Menke because they did not like her work, and Sally later edited many films by Quentin Tarantino, so we know that she could not have been a bad editor. Record-breaking independent success. No major studio had faith in the Ninja Turtles, but the film proved them all wrong in a big way. Upon release in March 1990, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles smashed expectations and box office records. It debuted at #1 with a massive $25 million opening weekend, which was unheard of for a non-holiday release. By the end of its run, it had earned about $202 million worldwide on a modest $13.5 million budget. Those numbers made it the highest-grossing independent film ever released up to that time, a title it held until the Blair Witch Project came along 9 years later. In fact, it was one of the top 10 moneymakers of 1990, outgrossing many big studio films that year. Not bad for a project every Hollywood studio initially passed on. So yeah, the Turtles delivered a cowabunga-sized hit and rewrote indie film history in the process. Roger Corman's bizarre original pitch. Years before the movie finally got made, B-movie king Roger Corman floated an insane idea for a turtle film. In the mid-1980s, franchise co-creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird received a pitch from Corman's company, and it was, let's just say it was unique. Corman envisioned casting a group of popular stand-up comedians to portray the four turtles, but not in proper suits that made them look authentic. Corman simply wanted the comedians as themselves in turtle shells with green face paint. The proposed cast included Sam Kinison, Gallagher, who was known for smashing watermelons, Bobcat Goldthwait, and Billy Crystal. Yes, Corman wanted to stick famous comics in cheap shell costumes and have them wisecrack through a low-budget adventure. Eastman and Laird were not impressed and wisely vetoed the idea, thankfully. It's a pretty scary what-if situation, to be honest. I mean, could you imagine an alternate universe where Michelangelo might have been cracking jokes in Gallagher's voice? As if that pitch wasn't crazy enough, another early draft, which was unrelated to Corman, reportedly veered into R-rated territory, and this one even had a fight scene against partially nude nuns on roller skates. But thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. Eastman and Laird held out for a better approach, one that respected the source material, and we're all better off for it, aren't we? Studio rejection nightmare. Securing funding and distribution for TMNT was a battle as tough as any Foot Clan fight. In the late 80s, every major Hollywood studio turned down the film. We're talking everyone, from Disney and Columbia to Universal, MGM, Orion, 20th Century Fox, Paramount, and even Warner Brothers. All of these powerhouses said no thanks. These companies feared a live-action Ninja Turtles movie would fall flat on its face, and if it is one thing that a production company wants, it's money. And to back up their fears were other comic and toy adaptations like Howard the Duck from 1986 and Masters of the Universe from 1987, which had bombed earlier. To executives, a project about human-sized talking turtles sounded like a huge risk, potentially another embarrassment in rubber suits. It wasn't until the independent film studio New Line Cinema, which was at the time known for low-budget fare and horror movies, agreed to do the film that TMNT found a home. In fact, New Line only agreed to distribute the movie when it was already halfway through production. After all, the big players had bailed. In hindsight, the supposed nightmare project the other companies rejected became a dream hit for New Line. Budget explosion. The Ninja Turtles' journey from comic page to screen started with what I can only describe as a shoestring proposal. But as could be expected with any decent superhero movie, it ended up quadrupling in cost. Early on, producer Kim Dawson and his partners pitched TMNT as a $3 million production, which would use Hong Kong stuntmen in simple rubber suits to keep expenses low. By simple, I mean cheap. Golden Harvest, the Hong Kong-based studio famous for Bruce Lee films, initially greenlit the project at that tiny budget, but as soon as pre-production began, they realized that $3 million wasn't going to cut it for what they wanted to achieve. Bringing Jim Henson's Creature Shop on board for advanced animatronic costumes alone cost about $3 million by itself. Costs kept climbing as the team insisted on better effects, more elaborate sets, and a higher overall quality. The budget blew past $6 million, then past $8 million, finally landing around $13 to $13.5 million when cameras roll. In other words, the movie's price tag grew by more than 4 times from the original plan. At one point, weeks before shooting, the money nearly ran out and the production was almost shut down. Only a last-minute infusion of cash from New Line Cinema in exchange for distribution rights kept the project alive. It was a risky gamble for an indie film, but given the massive box office payoff, that extra $10 million was money well spent. 18-week construction marvel. Bringing the Turtles to life required a monumental creature effects effort, one that required more than 126 working days of dedicated work at Jim Henson's Creature Shop in London. The workshop essentially had to invent an all-new process to create convincing, wearable mutant turtle suits. They began by sculpting each turtle body in full size. They first built forms in fiberglass, then resculpted them in clay for fine detail, and finally cast the pieces courses in foam rubber latex for flexibility. This lengthy fabrication process, which took roughly 4.5 months, resulted in some of the most advanced costumes ever seen up to that time, according to Henson himself. Each suit was an engineering marvel of sorts, something that brought together puppetry and prosthetics that allowed actors inside to fight and dance, while an outer layer of foam latex gave the appearance of living, expressive reptile skin. Now, it's obvious that the suits were a masterpiece, but they also had their cons, very heavy cons, literally. 70-pound technological nightmares. If the turtles looked light on their feet on screen, it's only because the filmmakers performed some serious movie magic. In reality, each turtle suit weighed an astonishing 70 pounds, about 32 kilograms, and was crammed with cutting-edge electronics. Inside those bulky green bodies were roughly 60 pounds of batteries, servos, cables, and motors powering the facial animatronics alone. Suit actors Michelin Sisti, Leif Tilden, David Foreman, and Josh Pais had to carry all that weight through take after take in the summer heat. The costumes were so heavy and unwieldy that simply performing basic martial arts moves became a Herculean challenge. To cope, the production actually built 2 sets of suits for each turtle. Lighter stunt suits were used in wide shots and fight scenes with minimal animatronics, and the full 70-pound hero suits with complete facial robotics for close-ups and dialogue. The hero suits had wires, radio receivers, and tiny motors embedded throughout, enabling the turtles to smile, frown, blink, and speak convincingly, essentially making them high-tech puppets that walked. Each turtle was thus a team effort of the actor in the suit providing the physical performance, while off-camera puppeteers operated the facial movements via remote controls and sophisticated rigs. Henson's final masterpiece. The turtle costumes were the handiwork of the late, great Jim Henson's Creature Shop. Henson, the genius behind the Muppets and Labyrinth's Goblins, initially had concerns about the project's tone since he wasn't fond of the script's violence. But as a favor to director Steve Barron, Henson agreed to have his London team tackle the challenge of making 4 6-foot talking turtles a reality. The result was groundbreaking. At the time, Jim Henson said, "These animatronic turtle suits were the most advanced creatures his studio had ever built, and as we saw earlier, he wasn't exaggerating. The level of detail, like each turtle having a distinct skin texture and facial structure, and the range of expression achieved through puppetry were unprecedented." Sadly, TMNT also marked the end of an era as Jim Henson died about a month and a half after the film's premiere in May 1990. Motion capture pioneer. Believe it or not, TMNT used a primitive form of motion capture technology years before CGI motion capture became common. The turtle suit's facial movements were so complex that they required an innovative solution to sync the mouths with the voice performances. The Creature Shop developed a system where a puppeteer would wear a special head rig, sometimes described as a helmet with sensors or a camera, and perform the dialogue by moving their mouth and jaw. Those movements were then transmitted in real time to the animatronic turtle head, which basically made its lips mimic the puppeteers. This allowed the turtle masks to form words and consonants in a more lifelike way than purely manual remote controls could achieve. Essentially, the puppeteers acted out the facial expressions and lip sync, and the high-tech helmets captured their emotions to drive the turtle animatronics. It was cutting-edge stuff for 1990 standard, and one may call it a direct precursor to the motion capture techniques now used for characters like Gollum or Hulk, combined with the remote radio controllers for eyes, brows, and other facial parts. Claustrophobic Raphael. For actor Josh Pais, bringing Raphael to life was equal parts exciting and agonizing. Pais was unique among the 4 turtle actors since he not only performed inside the Raph suit, but also provided Raphael's voice, giving the character the typical Brooklyn accent. This double duty meant Pais spent more time in the costume than anyone, and he happened to suffer from claustrophobia. Being sealed inside a turtle suit was like being trapped in a hot, noisy, confined space. face. Peiss described the experience as feeling like being in Grand Central Station at rush hour with a tin can on your head. Between takes, as soon as the director yelled cut, Peiss would frantically signal to get the turtle head removed so that he could catch his breath and calm himself. The production accommodated him by having stagehands ready to pop off his turtle mask quickly whenever possible. Despite the discomfort and genuine panic he sometimes felt inside the suit, Josh Peiss delivered a memorable performance, full of Raph's trademark anger and wit. In fact, that real frustration of being stuck in a 70-pound shell arguably helped his acting. As Peiss joked later, it wasn't hard to summon Raphael's grumpiness when he was sweltering inside an enclosure with whirring servos inches from his face. His dedication paid off, but he swore he'd never do a suit role again after that, and who could blame him? Extreme weight loss. Playing a Ninja Turtle was a serious workout. The actors and stunt performers inside those heavy suits were sweating profusely under the lights, to the point that they each shed a significant amount of body weight during the course of production. Reports at the time noted that each of the 4 suit actors lost around 15 to 20 pounds, which is roughly 7 to 9 kilograms, by the end of the shoot due to the constant physical strain and dehydration. Filming took place in the heat of summer 1989. Often on sound stages in North Carolina with limited air conditioning. Inside the foam latex suits, temperatures would skyrocket, effectively turning them into personal saunas, the super uncomfortable kind. Stuntmen have said they would drink a gallon of water a day and still feel dehydrated because they'd sweat it all out within hours. In daily safety meetings, crew members were reminded to watch for signs of heat exhaustion among the turtle performers. They even tried installing small battery-powered fans and hidden cooling tubes in the suits to circulate air and give the actors relief. It helped a little, but not enough, since the costumes were simply brutal to endure for long periods. Leif Tilden, Donatello's performer, recalled that after a day's work, he could literally pour a cup of sweat out of his suit. Robin Williams' secret help. Legendary comedian and actor Robin Williams lent a helping hand to the TMNT production in a heartwarming way. In 1989, Williams was filming the comedy Cadillac Man at the same time and in the New York City as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. His co-star in Cadillac Man happened to be Judith Hoag, who had just been cast as April O'Neil. Robin Williams was a huge Ninja Turtles fan and an avid comic book collector, so when he learned Hoag was playing April, he eagerly wanted to help by telling her what he knew. Williams provided Judith Hoag with his own personal collection of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books to help her research the character. He spent time discussing the lore and backstory with her so that she could better capture April's essence. This was well before internet wikis existed, so having those comics as reference was invaluable for Hoag to understand the tone of the original Mirage comics and April's role in them. Thanks to Williams's crash course, Hoag gained insight into April's fearless reporter attitude and her friendships with the Turtles. Robin Williams even reportedly attended the premiere with Hoag and her family for the finished TMNT film. Years later, Hoag credited Williams as one of the unsung heroes behind her performance. Cowabunga, Robin, you did good. Frame rate trick. Those Ninja Turtle fight scenes might look fast and fluid, but that's partly an optical illusion created by the filmmakers. As I told you earlier, the bulky turtle suits made truly rapid movements difficult, and the actors simply couldn't move as quickly or nimbly as real martial artists in normal clothing. To compensate, the production used lighter suits, but also used a clever camera trick. They undercranked the film rate during filming of certain scenes. Dialogue scenes were shot at 23 frames per second instead of the standard 24, and action scenes at an even lower 22 frames per second. When this footage was played back at normal speed, everything looked slightly sped up. In essence, undercranking by a frame or two made the turtles seem to punch, kick, and react faster without obvious telltale signs of fast forwarding. The adjustment was just subtle enough to avoid the jerky Benny Hill effect, but it added a welcome snap to the turtles' movements. This technique, combined with quick editing, allowed the fight choreography to appear more dynamic and sharp than it actually was on set. If you've ever felt that the turtles move surprisingly well for dudes in giant shells, now you know why. future stars in small roles. Eagle-eyed viewers of the 1990 film will spot a few familiar faces in the Foot Clan's ranks. Several young actors who later became quite famous appeared in blink and you'll miss them parts in the film. One such actor is Sam Rockwell, who plays the head thug of the teen criminals. Rockwell's character has a couple of lines. He offers cigarettes to new recruits and says, "Regular or menthol?" and later tells the police where to find the Foot hideout. That street punk would go on to become an Oscar-winning actor in the decades to follow. Oh yeah, he won the Oscar for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and later he was also nominated in the same category for playing George W. Bush in Vice, starring Christian Bale. Even Sam Rockwell's dialogue had a fun reference hidden in it. You see, he directs the cops to the East Warehouse on Lairdman Island, a sly reference to TMNT creators Eastman and Laird. But Rockwell isn't the only future star lurking in the shadows. A young Skeet Ulrich, who would later headline Scream and Riverdale, and Scott Wolf, future star of Party of Five, both appear as nameless Foot Clan members during the warehouse scenes. They're mostly in the background wearing foot soldier hoods. None of these actors could have guessed that the guy in the turtle suit next to them would remain rather anonymous while they themselves would achieve Hollywood fame. Turtle actor cameos. As I mentioned earlier, all the performers inside the turtle suits managed to get their real faces on screen too. I'll tell you where to look. All 4 of the main suit actors have brief live-action cameos in the film as a fun reward. Director Steve Barron wanted to let them be seen out of costume since they worked so hard. Josh Pais, the man behind Raphael, appears as a passenger in a New York taxi. In the scene where Ralph hops over a cab in a trench coat, Pais is the guy in the back seat who witnesses it and exclaims, "What the heck was that?" I've already spoken about Michelin Sisti. Leif Tilden, who puppeteered Donatello's body, shows up as a Foot Clan messenger. He's the young foot ninja who delivers a message to April in the subway station saying, "We have a message for you," before the Foot attack. Finally, David Foreman, the man in the Leonardo suit, plays a street gang member during Casey Jones's fight with Tatsu in the Foot Warehouse. Foreman swings a weapon and gets a bit of screen scuffling as a human. These cameos are quick. None of them have more than a line or two of dialogue, if any, but they're fun to watch and brag to your friends about, knowing the details that no one else knows. Elmo's voice as Splinter. The voice behind Master Splinter might sound vaguely familiar to those who grew up on Sesame Street. That's because the man providing Splinter's gentle, wise tone is Kevin Clash, best known as the performer of Elmo. Clash, a veteran puppeteer, not only voiced Splinter, but also operated the animatronic Splinter puppet on set. Bringing Splinter to life was a 2-person job. Clash worked from beneath the set, controlling the rod puppet of the 4-foot-tall rat sensei, while another puppeteer, Karen Prell, assisted with additional movements. Clash's voice performance as Splinter is a far cry from the high-pitched exuberance of Elmo. He created this very deep, gravelly, Japanese-accented voice to suit the aged mutant rat. The result was a character who felt warm and fatherly, yet also haunted by sorrow and wisdom. Interestingly, Clash was not credited by name in the film's initial release. He's listed as Kevin Clash as Splinter's voice only in some sources. Corey Feldman's bargain deal. Corey Feldman was one of the biggest teen stars of the 80s, so you might expect he got a hefty paycheck to lend his voice to Donatello. Nope, Feldman was paid only $1,500 for his entire voice role in TMNT. That's right, $1,500, which was basically the Screen Actors Guild minimum scale for a few days of voice work in 1989. So why so low? Feldman has explained that he agreed to do the small sum because the producers convinced him this was a low-budget indie film with little expectation of success. In other words, we can't afford more, but maybe the film will find an audience on VHS, was the pitch. Feldman, a fan of the Ninja Turtles, took the job as a fun opportunity and figured anything extra would come later if the movie somehow did well. Well, the movie became a blockbuster, with $202 million gross on a $13.5 million budget. And still, Feldman Feldman saw no bonus. He didn't have profit participation, so $1,500 was the beginning and end of his compensation for the first film. To add insult, when Feldman returned to voice Donatello in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 in 1993, his pay was pretty much the same token amount. He wasn't involved in TMNT 2 due to personal issues at the time. Feldman has laughed about it in interviews, noting that he certainly hadn't expected the phenomenon TMNT became. Luckily, he genuinely enjoyed being part of the Turtle family. Animatronic face freezing. With so many moving parts, it's no surprise that the turtle animatronics sometimes misbehaved. Beyond the radio interference causing spasms, there were moments when a turtle's face would simply freeze in a bizarre expression in the middle of a scene. The mechanisms could lock up, leaving, say, Michelangelo stuck with an over-the-top smile that wouldn't quit even as the actor inside was desperately trying to signal for help. On one occasion, a malfunction turned dangerous. During the filming of Raphael's fight with Casey Jones in the park, stunt performer Ken Traum, who doubled for some of Raph's action scenes, was inside the Raphael suit. When Casey vaults Raph into a trash can, the impact caused Raph's mechanical head to cave in internally. The hard plastic and metal innards smacked against Josh Pice's face, who was also in the suit for parts of that sequence, and the whole accident actually broke his nose. If you watch that scene, you can spot Raphael hurriedly grabbing his face as he climbs out of the bin, and that was a genuine reaction to a real injury. Pice has since confirmed the broken nose story and said that the take made it into the movie. Fortunately, he wasn't hurt beyond the nose and was able to continue. Sally Menke's editing debut. Before she became Quentin Tarantino's renowned film editor, Sally Menke cut her teeth on the Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was one of Menke's first major editing jobs. She was brought in to assemble the footage into a coherent movie. Menke, who later edited all of Tarantino's films from Reservoir Dogs through Inglourious Basterds, has been praised for her sharp storytelling instincts. On TMNT, however, her work went somewhat unsung and ultimately was altered. Golden Harvest didn't like Menke's initial cut of the film. Citing creative differences, they removed or replaced her during post-production, which was not common knowledge at the time. In fact, multiple editors are credited on TMNT, and Menke isn't listed as the lead editor in the final credits. According to later interviews, Menke's edit may have emphasized moodier, character-driven moments, likely aligned with director Steve Barron's vision. The producers, aiming for a snappier, kid-friendly pace, re-edited portions, possibly under the guidance of another Golden Harvest editor. Tarantino once even joked that when he told Uma Thurman he wanted Sally Menke to edit Pulp Fiction, Thurman asked, "Who's Sally Menke?" To which Tarantino replied, "Oh my god, Sally Menke made Donatello fight." Radio control chaos. Shooting a high-tech puppet movie comes with some unusual problems, like stray radio signals making your turtle have a seizure on camera. Much of TMNT was filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, not far from a busy military airport. The turtle head's animatronic facial mechanisms were operated via radio frequency controllers, essentially remote controllers, by puppeteers nearby. During filming, whenever a plane flew overhead or communications from the airport control tower went out, the radio interference would sometimes wreak havoc on the turtle suit's electronics. What was the result, you ask? In the middle of a take, a turtle's face might suddenly spasm uncontrollably or freeze in a bizarre expression as the signals crossed. Actors recalled that more than once they'd be delivering a line when their animatronic eyebrows or lips started going haywire because they inadvertently picked up a military transmission. Crew members quickly learned to hold filming when an aircraft was landing. Even so, some unpredictable glitches occurred. Fortunately, most of the worst malfunctions happened in rehearsal rather than during the perfect take. April's yellow jumpsuit rejection. In translating the Turtles from cartoon to live action, not everything could make the jump, especially April O'Neil's fashion sense. Fans know April traditionally wears a bright canary yellow jumpsuit as her signature outfit, at least in the 80s animated series and toys. Director Steve Bannon thought it would be a fun reference to have actress Judith Hoag wear April's yellow jumpsuit and big 80s perm hair for the movie. Judith Hoag, however, had strong feelings about that, and she flat out refused to wear the loud yellow jumpsuit, reportedly calling the initial costume design horrifying. Hogue felt that the head-to-toe yellow looked garish in real life, and that it would undermine the more grounded tone they were going for in the film. In the end, a compromise was reached. In April's first scene, where she's attacked by the Foot Clan in the subway, Hogue's April wears a yellow raincoat as a subtle tribute to the cartoon look. Underneath, and for the rest of the movie, her wardrobe is much more restrained, with blouses, skirts, and a brown leather jacket, more appropriate for a working reporter in 1990. As for April's hair, Hogue also vetoed the idea of an outlandish curly red coiffure. She went with a more natural auburn style, albeit still paying homage to April by having a bit of a red tint. Interestingly, Hogue's reluctance to embrace the cartoon aesthetic was one of a few disagreements she had with the production. She also spoke up about the level of violence and the treatment of stunt people. Whether that played a part in her not returning for the sequel is debated, but what's clear is that Judith Hogue stood her ground for what she felt was right for April's live-action portrayal. Underground set engineering. The Turtles' home, their sewer lair, wasn't a real New York sewer, but a marvelously crafted set with some clever engineering behind it. The production designers built the underground hideout set elevated about 4 feet off the floor of the soundstage. Why? This gap allowed puppeteers and technicians to hide under the sewer and run cables, operate controls, and even physically appear into hidden trapdoors as needed to manipulate props and the Splinter puppet. Essentially, the sewer floor was like a stage with an orchestra pit beneath it for the crew. The set itself was richly detailed and surprisingly authentic. It had these damp concrete walls complete with water stains and tide marks, dripping pipes, and even functional water flow in the background to sell the idea of a sewer channel. Director Steve Barron insisted that despite the fantastical concept, the environment should feel real and lived in. People needed to believe in the sewers, to feel the water dripping off the pipes, so it could all become real, Barron said. To that end, the art department even constructed a working water fountain, where Michelangelo skateboards in and grabs a slice of pizza, and scattered across moss and slime to get that grimy effect. Lights were cleverly hidden to cast long shadows, which gave the lair a subterranean, cozy outlook amid all the filth that a sewer has. The elevated set design paid off whenever Splinter appeared, and puppeteers like Kevin Clash could stand below and use rods to animate the wise rat, without the audience ever noticing a thing. Single voice body match. Finally, Josh Pais, who played Raphael, has a distinct honor in the cast of being the only turtle actor to both physically perform in the suit and provide the character's voice. For the other 3 turtles, the filmmakers split the duties between 2 people, one to do all the on-camera suit work and a separate voice actor to record the dialogue later. For example, Michelangelo was performed in costume by Michelin Sisti, but voiced by comedian Robbie Riss. Leonardo's body was David Foreman, with the voice by Brian Tochi. And Donatello's suit actor was Leif Tilden, voiced by Cory Feldman. However, Josh Pais did it all for Raphael. He spent hours inside Raph's suit, and he gave Raph his signature wise guy New Yorker voice. This one-actor approach for Raphael helped make him arguably the most seamlessly realized turtle, since the vocal performance was coming from the same person experiencing the physical scene. Pais could time his line delivery to his gestures in real time, whereas the others had to have their dialogue fit to the mouth movements after the fact. The production did give the suit actors a chance to audition to be their characters' voices, and only Pais ended up chosen, but much later. Yeah, Pais wasn't originally slated to voice Raphael. It came about because his natural line readings behind the mask were spot on, and the producers kept them. The other suit actors, while excellent mimes and fighters, sometimes had their dialogue muffled or altered by the animatronic delays, so dubbing with professional voice actors made sense. So yeah, each of these behind-the-scenes facts show what an extraordinary effort went into making Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles such a memorable film. The combination of passionate creators, innovative techniques, and a little bit of crazy risk-taking resulted in a movie that has stood the test of time. If you're gonna watch the re-release in theaters, well, you may have something to tell your friends that they didn't already know, making you the cool guy or girl. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.